Welcome to Magic in the Moment, Mindfulness in Real Time. My name is Clayton Platt, and I'll be your host for this podcast journey. And for many people, practicing mindfulness has very little to do with sitting on a cushion, lighting incense, or even focusing on their breath. Just paying attention to what they're doing at any moment, and doing this intentionally can create that same magic. Our time together is intended to share how mindfulness plays out in everyday life for our guests. And before we begin, here's a word from our sponsor, Meditation for Leadership. We all feel it, the pressure to keep up, to perform, to push through. But lasting success doesn't come from speeding up. It comes from slowing down, leaning in, and creating the space to lead from within. That space is where we shift from autopilot to intention, building mindful habits that strengthen focus and calm. It's where we stay connected to our values and purpose, choosing to respond instead of react. It's where we unlock our potential to positively shape our own lives and empower others to grow and thrive. That's the work of Meditation for Leadership. If you're ready to create the space for sustainable success, visit meditationforleadership.org. So today, I'm really pleased to welcome Candice Van Dertholen. Candice brings a rare blend of presence, insight, and lived experience to her work. And every time I'm in conversation with her, I find myself just slowing down and listening a little more closely. She works at the intersection of mindfulness, leadership, and human connection. And I'm excited to explore what's alive for her right now and what we can learn from it. So, Candice, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for such a lovely intro. I could just listen to you for hours.
Well, the plan here is not to be listening to me for hours, but to learn more about you. So let's start, Candice, and tell me just a little bit about what's happening in your life. You know, what are you working on? What's important for Candice right now?
Oh my goodness. So there's so much that is happening that has been beautiful in this season. So a little bit of background is that, being a holistic practitioner, I was so nervous to step into the big girl world or, big kid world of LinkedIn and, different forms of social media. And in doing so and really being able to showcase who I am in a different place, everything in my business and my practice has just expanded. And so January is quite the month. So I am launching a cohort that has 20 members so far, which is so exciting. Was not on my radar to do this soon, but that's a story I can tell. And then I have a retreat coming up that is a women's retreat, which is so beautiful and exciting. Everything that I'm creating in this season, in this world, is all about creating experiences. So when I do things, it's not a transaction. It is like, how can I make this be an experience that stays, that resonates, that expands? And so that everything that we take in, everything that we learn, we can implement and apply, even if it's later down the road. Everything that I love teaching is all about embodiment. So being an energy practitioner, I find that most people are so disconnected within their physical being. And so they're missing the internal signals. They don't trust themselves. Their confidence is lower. And so if I can bridge that connection back and help them and guide them into really fully understanding themselves and listening again, then I've done what I'm here to do. And it's very exciting to see that shift happen, because it's like that moment something clicks and they're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of it this way. And then their life opens up, their relationships deepen, their business grows, whatever we're working on takes on a whole new form. And that is what is exciting for me in this season.
That's a lot.
I know. I don't do anything small.
Why bother, right? So when I was listening to that, it deeply resonated with me, that whole sense of experience and feeling the experience. And I want to spend some time on that. But as we kind of begin this conversation, knowing that's where you are right now, let me kind of shift back and find out, so where did you start? Where did this, let's say this mission, right, that you're on now, which is so exciting and so important and meaningful, where did this start, and how does the concept of mindfulness, and for me, mindfulness in real time. How does that play into this?
So everything began for me throughout my lifetime. And I know that's a very general way of saying it, but I struggled for the longest time with mental health. And it was very early in my childhood that I would start to really disconnect from myself. And it was, my lived experiences. It's not that I had a super traumatic childhood, I just had a very disconnected childhood and grew up very fast, had to figure life out, and went through some hardships later on because of it. And so I came to a point of finding energy medicine and all of the beautiful ways that mindfulness can help us reconnect within when I was going through my own moment of personal need for identity. So I had gone through a really tumultuous experience. So I had gone through domestic violence and abuse, and I remember the moment that everything shifted for me when I was going through the transition of leaving. I was standing in a grocery store and I walked in with like a list and like a plan. And then I like stood there and I just didn't know what to buy. I was like, I don't, I don't even know how to make this decision right now. And it was just a moment where my whole world froze. And I began to realize that I didn't even know myself anymore. Did I actually know myself? Had I just been living this external version of what everybody else wanted me to be? And I worked through a lot of therapy in that time and had to really uncover these different conditionings and mindsets and behavioral patterns that I had developed over time as coping mechanisms or the ability to even just exist and survive in my life. And it would be about 5 years later that I would find energy medicine. And that was like the missing link of connecting all of the healing. So I did this deep inner work and then I just felt kind of stuck. And I was like, how can I move through this differently? How can I stop shaming myself? Or how can I like really build this connection with myself? And my practitioner found me. It was through a long way of coming together. But essentially, the moment that I had my first session, I knew right then that I needed to share this with the world. I said, if the world knew this, we wouldn't have hardly any of the problems. I don't think we would have any of the problems that we see today. And I know that's a big thing to say, but it's because of the divine energy flow that I feel when I'm in session or when I'm providing a session, that I just know if people knew how supported they are, no matter what their life circumstance has been, they would do what they're here designed to do without any regard. And it would be a co-created process of doing this, not just for yourself, but for the community, for the environment, just to come back together in that connection again. And so I've been on a mission to help people, because if you had told me 10 years ago that I would be doing the work I'm doing today and that people would be looking up to me and asking me what I'm doing and all these things, I would not have believed you because I was not in that space. 10 years ago, I nearly ended my life. And it was something that I'm not proud of. It's not always easy to talk about, but it is my lived experience. And I came very close. And so I definitely don't take life for granted at all. And that I know how hard I had to fight to be here mentally, physically, emotionally. But if I can do it, I know anybody can. And so if I can be that bridge, if I can be that connection that helps somebody see a glimmer of hope in themselves again, then I've done what I'm here to do.
I can't rush a response to that. I'm
Mm.
letting it sit with me for a second, Candice, because that's so powerful.
Mm.
And your description of what you're going through was hitting me deeply. And that sense of transition from lost and wondering whether there was a future to finding yourself, acknowledging where the power was coming from. And I love the sense of co-creating. So it's not simply this energy is coming externally and that's saving me. the energy is available to me. I'm now allowing it to sort of enter me. And now together we're working on this future plan, this path. And that's beautiful and it's powerful. And I think the sense of urgency to share it makes sense. So I'm really glad you're doing that. I'm really glad that you're here because I think that the world needs more. The world needs more stories of people who have been damaged and acknowledge and are vulnerable and don't move forward saying, "Hey, everything's great now." It's like, no, not everything's great, but I'm aware, right? So that's just, it's beautiful. And thank you for sharing that. So one of the things that I also was hearing in that was you went through that initial stage where you kind of got yourself settled, right? But you weren't moving forward yet. You were like, okay, here I am. I'm kind of stuck. I was hearing awareness there, like that metacognition of like, I'm looking here, I'm seeing myself, but things could be different. Where was that coming from? That awareness, was that something? Was that coming from meditation or simply just other ways to build the mindfulness?
Absolutely. So at the time, I had been working in the medical field through MedVet, which is a emergency pet clinic. So all for animals. And I was going through my deepest burnout. It was during COVID. It wasn't in a field I had no experience in beforehand. So just like to preface that, it was just my industry had shut down from COVID, and we're a military family, so I was already transitioning. But so I was in this point of burnout. I had found meditation, and it was the first time in my life that I recognized I was really uncomfortable in stillness. I've been to an ashram in California. So anybody that doesn't know what that is, it's like a big yoga meditation retreat center. And you go and you practice mindfulness, you learn different techniques for finding that stillness. And even though I had been through that, it had been years and out of practice, out of sight, right? I had also been in a season of grief and loss in a complex way. So I had lost both of my previous husbands 1 year after the other. We were not together at the time of either of those losses, but they were just complex because of that. And so my kid's father, then my abusive husband. And so I was in this energy of like, I have so much processing through my system from burnout, COVID, the losses, dealing, trying to help my kids navigate this because there was a lot of disconnection there because he was not in their life, that kind of thing. So I just needed help. And I needed to figure out how to move through this in a way that was a lot more grounded. And I can say grounded now. I didn't know that then, but meditation was so uncomfortable in that moment because so much moving through my body and I didn't know what to do with it. And that's why I think most people can struggle in the beginning with meditation, is it is that moment of stillness that brings everything forward. And sometimes we're not fully ready for what's trying to filter through. I believe that we are in some degree. It's just kind of, do you need a guide to help you? So what the awareness came from is I knew I didn't need to do it on my own. And that was the honoring I needed to do in that season, because I think the other side of things is we always think that we have to figure out everything, but that's why there's guides. That's why there's mentors. That's why there's coaches, whichever direction you're going in. And so for me, I had to admit, like, I just need something that's different to come into my life. And so fast forward, that's where I met my practitioner. And it just, again, it opened me up to see things so differently. And I was like, okay, I know I have a lot of work to do. I know this isn't going to be like tomorrow that I start doing this, but I'm willing to get started. And so those were the different tools that came into play. So it was meditation, and then the realization that I didn't have everything I needed to get through this. So being open to receive what was coming next and paying attention to that. and then being able to apply it going forward, which again, it was a journey. It wasn't just like overnight. It was like, boom, I'm healed. I'm done. Yeah. Don't we all wish? It doesn't happen like that. And I like to share with people that we experience our life in increments of time, right? Like time is a construct that we created anyway, but I won't go down that road. The bigger thing is that there are minutes in the days, there are hours, seconds, months, years, seasons, you name it. We've gone through that movement of time. And so we go through our life experiences in those increments too. And I think that we heal in those increments as well. So it would be crazy to think we heal one situation all at one time, because there's layers to that experience. And the moment we kind of open into that, it makes it a little bit easier. Some people can hear that and be like, oh my gosh, that means I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I'm like, maybe some of it. But the bigger thing is to give yourself that grace when you're moving through it, that it might take a little bit, and that's okay. It's normal.
Yeah, that sense of the nonlinear aspects of of our lives, of our journeys, and we get so programmed, especially I think with the massive amounts of information and posting on social media from self-help gurus to say, you're here and you want to get there. This is how you get there. It's like, yeah. And what you're describing to me makes so much more sense. That first of all, the construct of time, again, we're not going to take this time to talk about it, but that's something that humans created to kind of make sense of things. But
Yeah.
So another time we'll deal with that. But understanding that, and I think it was Sharon Salzberg has this graphic where it's like people think that, the journey goes from here to here, and it's really right. And understanding the crazy start, stop, ups and downs parts of our journey, and understanding that that's human. That's great. It's just recognizing, okay, I was here I am. Take a new breath. I'll begin again, just as we started this podcast. Thanks to editing, no one else was going to know that. But that makes so much sense to me. And I want to also kind of circle back to the sense of, you and I've talked about meditation. I'm a meditator. You were meditating. You still meditate. But I like to try to make an accessibility to mindfulness to go beyond, you need to be sitting on the cushion, you need to be in an ashram, you need to be on a 7-day silent retreat. By the way, it works for me, and I learn something every time I do it, but it's not for everybody. So as you talk to people, as you guide people, are there elements of finding ways to become more mindful that you've noticed work for people and kind of open that door for them?
Yes. So a lot of the clients that I work with have some form of ADHD. Most of them are entrepreneurs, which I joke often and say that must be like a requirement or a DNA strand in the entrepreneurial world, because otherwise we might not function. But so the mind is a lot of busy, and the physical body is a lot of busy, and we've been so disconnected from the connection of our body that it's an reintegration process that has to take place. So sitting in meditation might not fulfill that in the beginning. So being out in nature, walking, and just taking a simple act of like nothing in the ears, just pay attention to the surroundings and allow your mind to just not be distracted for 5 minutes. That's a good starting place. Sometimes our body needs physical movement in order for the mind to be still. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong or bad about you. It's just how you operate. And so as you begin to incrementally slow down, it gets easier over time. It's just like any other habit that we show up for, or anything that we're trying to learn how to do, or a skill. We have to get used to allowing it to come in and be easier. And we only do that through the repetitive process of showing up for it. most people sit in meditation and they're like, okay, my whole to-do list is downloading. I'm not doing it right. And then you guilt, and then you're like, I can't do this. And it's like, yeah, it's just maybe not that method, not that way yet. Being that I agree, I think that we don't have to go sit on the mountain for 12 days to receive enlightenment or receive wisdom from ourselves even, but it's great when you can, right? But going back to it, what I have found is when people do this in increments of the time that they have. So I've walked people through nervous system resets within 90 seconds. So how do you tune into your body, breathe into the expansion of it, and then go back into your day? Little things like that. Now, while it's not necessarily meditation, it's still slowing the body down enough to get you the result you're looking for. When it comes to meditation, I always recommend people play with it, try it, because some people are really great at guided meditation and some people aren't. I know in the beginning, guided meditations, my brain was so busy that I was like, okay, I am so distracted by listening that that I had to subtract the guidance part. And some people really need the guidance because they don't know what they're doing. And that's, again, it's just a play around process, and give yourself grace in that process, because you really can get so much from such a short amount of time. And then what happens is you crave that stillness. And I feel like that's what happens over time. You're like, oh, this feels so good. I actually have a little bit more clarity, or I had a better conversation over here because I was paying attention differently. And you start to see it in your external world. And I think that's what grows the desire to sit in meditation longer, or still walk in it as well.
Yeah, that there's so much wisdom there, and you started with that reference to, in a way, sort of breath work or whatever, when you're in the midst of the day and you're being pulled in 1,000 different directions, and your nervous system is starting to go woo, 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 right, and you go, okay, close my eyes or not close my eyes, look down and just take some deep breaths, make my exhale a little longer than my inhale, and just get a sense of, okay, I'm feeling it. And now let me also sense that, okay, I've sent the message to my parasympathetic nervous system that I think it's okay. And I can feel it calming down. And that reinforces, okay, that worked. Now I can go back into that conversation, right? And be present. And those other little things you mentioned, like walking, um, you know, one of the things you do in a silent retreat is, because you're not talking to anybody, you eat mindfully, and you kind of get a sense of, what does this food actually feel like, taste like, going down, and that whole process. Like, ooh, you don't do that normally, right? Walking the dog. I take these 1 hour walks with the dog, and frequently I've been listening to one of my favorite podcasts, right? And then it's like, well, wait a minute. This time I'm going to walk the dog, as you mentioned, with nothing in my ears. And I'm going to let the dog be my leader, go at his pace, and just sense, oh, there's the sun, or this is what the air feels like. What's he looking at now? I wonder what that sniffing. He is fascinating. And all that is that moment that's outside of this, and bringing me into another space, which is this moment.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And the other thing you mentioned, I want you, if you could, kind of take us here. There's a sense of sitting and being quiet, which meditation invites, that can, in fact, be really difficult for people who are in the midst of trauma or suffering from trauma, PTSD. And there are different ways to deal with that don't necessarily exclude eventually getting there, but understanding that inviting these feelings to arise can be scary and sometimes dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that goes back to learning how to trust yourself, which is a big thing that I work with clients on, because we've been so disconnected from that intuitive knowledge that you have to relearn. And I call it relearning the language of the soul. So knowing what you're ready for when you're ready for it. And being mindful of your experience and knowing that if you're experiencing that, that's when you need to find a resource, whether that is something that is free and available or someone that you can trust as a mentor or a guide to walk that path with you. So I just invite, like, when I got to a space where I knew I needed external support in order to get me to that place where now I can sit in meditation and I'm completely fine. But that took learning how to do that. And sometimes I think it goes back to building that internal awareness that it doesn't have to feel so scary. Like, I'm not trying to make people be like, oh my gosh, I can never do this. But the bigger thing is just recognizing that if it's unsettling, there's a deeper layer of asking that you can do to prepare. Even, when you're sitting there and you're feeling so uncomfortable, you're feeling the overwhelm, ask yourself where it's originating, if that's safe for you, and walk through that either with someone if you need to, or really sit with that energy of, I am supported in this process. I wouldn't be here doing this if I weren't ready. Just allow it to come through at the pace that is right for me. But I agree. I think that we have to be very aware of where we're starting and what our needs are so that we can do that safely.
Being able to walk that path with a mentor, with a guide, can be hugely supporting. And but also those moments when you're sitting, what is becoming part of your cognizance, what you're becoming aware of, is so much an aspect and a reason for being on the path, which is, oh, this bothers me. Or we mentioned just the simple thing of sitting is like my to-do list. Okay. So if you're trying to just be quiet, whether it's meditation or you're walking and that thought just keeps recurring, you can take note of that, take inventory and say, okay, there's a reason this keeps coming into my cognizance. At some point, I need to deal with it. Maybe I'm not going to deal with it right now, but I'm going to make a checklist to say, okay, let's revisit this. As it gets deeper, and those things that are coming up as obstacles or challenges, being able to recognize, as you said, this is here. This is asking for me to actually deal with it. At this moment, I can't identify it. Maybe I need help with that, or maybe I just need to give it more time and do this in a way that is gentle and with as little judgment as possible. And I think also trying to avoid bringing all our preconceptions, because our brain wants to do that. It wants to explain this quickly so that we can move on to another problem. But it's like, okay, let's drop this. Let's kind of look at this with curiosity, perhaps that beginner's mind, and say, okay, let's pretend I'm looking at my friend and not me.
Mm-hmm.
And what do I see?
Yeah.
That, again, that can be really hard, because if something coming up, it's really scary. Okay, work with someone.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and something I'd like to add is that even myself as a practitioner, there are moments, I had a moment over the summer where there was an interaction and it like sent me into a whole whoop, like my energy rose and I was like feeling it in my heart. And I was like, just this physical feeling of anger that like, and it takes me a lot to get angry, just to let y'all know, but um in this case, it didn't. And what I was dealing with, I had to take a step back because I needed to gather my thoughts, how I wanted to respond, instead of just react, because it's really easy to react in moments like that. But then I took it a step further and was like, all right, Candice, like this affected you. So we got to do some inner work to figure out why it pushed you so far and what was the trigger. What was it that it was bringing up for you to work through? And there was a thread of it in a past experience that I just hadn't fully worked through. And I connected the dots. And I mean, I can do this for myself, and I do work with other people to help me when I can't. But at the same time, I had to take that time and space, and it didn't all come to me in one setting. I was open to the fact that I knew that this triggered me in a way, and so I needed to find the answer. And once I did, I was like, oh, I get it. And I was able to move through it and do my practices to move beyond it. But it took me, again, like you were saying, going back to the basics, just like everybody else. And we do this often. And I say that because I know that you have other practitioners that listen. So it's like we can tend to guilt ourselves when we don't have it all. Like we're like, what? Why am I feeling this way? But it's just an invitation to explore deeper. So.
I I wrote recently about practicing what I teach.
Mm-hmm.
And I went through and I just listed all the ways that recently I have done things which would indicate that I'm back at the beginning. And it's like, okay, yeah. So I've taught about patience and letting go. And there I am at the stoplight and someone's not turning right on red. And I'm like, it's like, are you kidding me? Mr. Mindful,
You were mindful
right?
of your horn.
Right at that point, right? But that's it. Seems like at a very superficial level, and yet the little things. The more you start paying attention to that, it's like, what are the little things that keep, as you're saying, trigger you? Some of them are deep
Mm-hmm.
and could be traumatic with a capital T or lowercase t, or some of them are just these ongoing habits, these
Mm-hmm.
ongoing behaviors that, if you're not careful, just continue to get more and more ingrained. And even when you think you've made progress, you can recede. And just being aware, I thought I'd worked with it. Well, you were doing that for 60 years. And
Mm-hmm.
so that those neural pathways are pretty deep. So continuing to be aware of that and catch them and see where the uh, similarities are. Where does it start to make sense? Oh, this happens frequently here. I can now begin to understand this is where the work that I need to go back and kind of release some of my self judgment or understand I I've got work that I never finished. And I'm blaming myself for that. And somehow this conversation has made me aware that even though it wasn't Candice who was making me mad, it was me. But now I'm barking at her. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that makes so much sense. That makes so much sense. So tell me more about some of the work you do, sort of organizationally.
Yeah. So what I do now is I do workshops to help with embodiment. So, and some of this looks like in the form of identifying imposter syndrome. That's a big one that I'm doing right now. Yeah, you just like smiled instantly. Well, because an example was I was doing a talk on imposter syndrome. I was brought in to do this talk. We just came out from this panel session of really empowering, powerful women, and I shrank instantly. I was like, who am I to deliver this? What am I? And I started the mind, right? And I do what I teach people. I slowed down. I, took that deep breath in, and I reminded myself that the message means more than my insecurity. And so I was like, you were brought here to deliver this message. It's, just move through it. So with imposter syndrome, I like to help people identify the signals, again, that the body is giving us that we're heading into it. Because sometimes it's a signal that you're prepared, you know the things, you just can't predict the future. So the fear of success, the unknown, or failure, or even perceived failure is how I like to say it. But so that's one side of things. Sometimes we get a little bit of imposter syndrome when we need to elevate a skill or brings another layer to ourselves, and we're like, yeah, I might not actually have what it takes. So I think identifying where we are on that path, because sometimes it's a little bitty increase that we need because we just need that nudge, or sometimes we have it and we just need to run with it and figure out where is the past experience telling us differently. So I talk a lot about embodiment and how to, again, really identify the signals that the body is giving you and how to learn those signals so that you can then decide differently. and move differently. I do a lot of private work right now. So smaller groups, I have a lot of medical communities that I go in and I help them teach simple practices to help them recalibrate throughout their day, because it's not something that's, I mean, we know that the medical field, 15 minutes every session is a lot, right? So how can you take moments of stillness throughout your day and again, tune back into the body to listen? And even how can you instill those habits with your team? Because a lot of these providers are teaching the next generation of medical leaders. And it's like, how can we start earlier to really slow them down? And then, of course, doing the private work with clients where we're really identifying the layers of experience that don't make it feel safe to be in the body, so that they can clear those patterns and cycles and move forward in their life in a way that feels more aligned. So again, working with a lot of entrepreneurs on that energy of stuckness, like my business isn't growing, or I feel like I'm taking 12 steps back, or I actually want to go do this, but I'm really nervous for this transition. So again, slowing down to align within so that they can lead ahead. So that's what I'm doing in this season anyway.
That's beautiful.
No, thank you.
Yeah, there's so much there and so needed. And thinking a couple of things about the medical community and both sort of physical medicine and sort of emotional, mental health, and seeing so many patients.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so often because of the way we are structured in our system, it's bump, 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 bump. And somehow being able to close the virtual door of that person you're with now so that you're now with the next client slash patient and totally with them. Whereas, the previous one might have had something that was mind shattering and you're going, whoa, there's so much need there. But okay, once I'm past that, I need to make that transition and bring my attention and focus here. So those techniques are so important. Also, circling back to the imposter syndrome and the felt sense of, why am I here? What's going on? I'm not good enough. Holy moly, right? And I'm thinking about every time I've been a stage performer since high school, and I've been a speaker, et cetera, teacher. Every time I'm about to go on stage, I feel it. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I've learned over time, and I think it happened naturally, but looking back, it's like it makes sense from a mindfulness standpoint. Checking into what's happening and saying, first of all, this is not the first time I've ever felt that. I survived the last time this happened. And what is it? What's the message? And what I realized was most often the message wasn't, I wasn't prepared. The message was, this is important. You care.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is exciting, right? And reframing that from I'm about to make a mess of things to being, I get this opportunity. This is what I live for, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think that when we can see, it's our level of excitement and deep desire to see whatever it is that we're putting into the world or onto the stage, to see the movement happen within others. And we can just tell that it's something that we're really passionate and we care about, versus, like you said, I just don't have the competency to do it. It does shift the energy within you to remind you of why you're there to do it to begin with. I love that you said that. There's a doctor that I follow, Jonathan Fisher, and he said something very similar where he was like, I was standing in the back and I had this anxiety that rushed over me. I'm about to deliver this talk. It's not the first one. And I had to take that step back and think, why am I feeling this? And he said something very similar. He's like, I just really care. I really care about the message.
Yeah. And that totally reframes it and puts it in a positive framework. And that's one of the things that I've really come to embrace. I believe in positive psychology. I'm not a huge fan of empty affirmations and forgive people who are like, right. But rather, if looking at things and being able to find gratitude and find the positive aspects of why I'm involved in this, which then helps calm the nervous system and put you in a framework where you can move ahead in a in a way that is towards the result that you'd like, and not crumble in the sense of challenge and obstacles, etc. But taking those moments and just finding the good that's there. And as you mentioned, this is so important. You're about to deliver a message. There's that imposter syndrome. There's a sense of, oh my God, I don't feel like I'm prepared or whatever. And it's like, this is a message that is meaningful. And there's a reason why I've been asked to share it. And when I do, I know I feel good about it. So let's give it a shot. And let's not have that preconception that it's going to land flat. Because among other things, almost always in that situation, people are actually cheering for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think it goes back to we've just not been taught how to be kind to ourselves. We have been taught the opposite. Like, if you're not, trying to do things better, then you're not winning. If you're not pushing harder, you're not winning. And really, the more inquisitive we become with ourselves and the deeper that we appreciate ourselves, the more vibrancy that we put into the world and the more that we carry that message differently. And I say that because, I know that the self-love movement came out a couple of years ago, well, probably a decade now, but anyways, aging myself. So, the movement itself and the idea is beautiful. And we just have to inquire, what does that truly mean for us, and take it an even step slower, where we're identifying that when we truly choose to honor who we are, it's because we know and value who we are first. Because when we value and know who we are, then we have that energetic capacity to hold that same space for others. And that's where we see less of the honking of the horn, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But we carry our conversations differently, because we're not in this space of disliking ourselves so much. And again, I do believe that we can only hold so much space for others when we don't care for ourselves, or we don't care about this being right here. And yet, when we can transform that energy, that's when the world shifts, right? That's when our community starts in our community, right? Our four corners. And then we can branch beyond that. And yeah, I just feel like the more that we love and honor who we are, the easier all of this work becomes. It doesn't mean we don't have moments of it. Like I was sharing earlier, where I'm like, whoop, I get in that little shrinkage moment. It's just that you learn to embody yourself in that moment so that you can walk forward.
That whole sense of not truly being able to interact properly with others when we don't love ourselves, care for
Mhm.
ourselves, makes so much sense. And one of the things that I've realized is that for those who've suffered and aren't providing self-compassion, self-care, they've built up walls to protect themselves, right? And those walls then inhibit their ability to interact in a natural, compassionate, caring way, an empathetic way with others, because that wall's there saying, I have to protect myself. And if that's there, uh, it is an inhibitor of that true connection. So, yeah, so connecting with ourselves and honoring ourselves. And as you mentioned, you said the self-love movement, and I could almost see the eyes roll from yourself, because the world rolls its eyes at that, right? The world rolls its eyes at a lot of things that are at its core really important, but it gets glossed over because of sometimes the superficiality of people going, oh yeah, this is something I can sell, blah, blah, blah. Okay, right.
Right.
But it's hard work,
Mhm.
and it has to be done with personal commitment and deep vulnerability and honesty to say, yeah, wow, I had no idea I was carrying so much pain and baggage, right? I I use the analogy of the backpack. And what are we carrying? And that backpack is so often filled with junk that is just weighing us down and not allowing us to move forward at a pace that we potentially need. So we need to take that moment, open the backpack, and say, "Oh, I had no idea I was carrying that. Huh. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's lighter now. Now I can move forward more easily myself and actually be in a place where I'm more accessible to others, and I'm able to see what others need with more clarity because I'm struggling now a little less for myself,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm more open and available."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just knowing it's a journey and a process. I think we're really quick to rush into a need to do it a very specific way. And the availability of that is truly what is right for us or aligned for us in that moment. I like to give the analogy of a garden. Now, I'm not a big gardener. My grandmother is, and I love it. But when you go to plant a garden, you can plant the very same seeds next to each other, water them the same way, they're in the same soil, they have the same sunlight, and yet they grow at different paces, right? They all come to life and they're ready for even the harvest at different times. That's no different than anything that we put into the world, first of all. So whether that be a personal, a passion project, a business, things like that, but also when we're doing this inner work, right? So you can go in there and look at things and, you know, doop, I have everything in order, but yet each moment in time is going to bloom and blossom at different paces. And that's the beauty in it, because then it gives you integration period. It gives you enough of the harvest, right, to carry you through. There's all these back things that are happening on our behalf that we struggle with because we're like, well, why isn't it right now? But like if it all came at the same time, we wouldn't be able to use it all, right? We wouldn't be able to move through it all. So, anyways, yeah.
I love that. And in that gardening analogy, the other thing is that, we create a lot of compost.
We do.
And actually, the compost helps things grow. If we recognize it's like all that, I was going to say a word not
Yeah.
safe for, right? But we create all of that crap.
Mm-hmm.
And if we acknowledge we're working, it's like, well, that can then help us grow or help the things that we're trying to cultivate grow. It needs it. And in the immortal words of Thich Nhat Hanh, no mud, no lotus, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need that stuff. A lotus flower does not grow, without that muck. And acknowledging that, as you said, things grow at different paces. And sometimes what looked like the most beautiful little bud fades and felt okay. But the others we continue to take care of, and they grow at their own time and their own pace. And we can celebrate that.
Absolutely.
So tell me, Candice, you mentioned a retreat, and in all fairness, one doesn't know when people listen to a podcast, but is there something that you have coming up that we can make our listeners aware of that they might be able to take advantage of?
Absolutely. So, this January cohort experience, and I call it an experience because, again, I like to expand and deepen everything that we come into. It is really exciting. So, over the course of this past year, people have been asking me, how did I do it? How did I grow into this beautiful consistency that I have now in my business? And my background is that I helped, build small businesses. I just had never done it for myself, and this past year, going from zero consistency to 84 clients, 2 fully booked retreats, now the cohort, it's like things are moving. And it was all me getting into alignment and doing these very things that I work with my private clients on that I'm putting into the cohort. So we're coming together for 7 weeks. It's technically 9 because there's 2 breaks in between. And then I have an amazing group of speakers that I've paid to come in and do their experience. So everything from, we focus on business things, right? So it's personal alignment, business strategy. And then what are those things that if you're trying to get your message into the world, how can you do that? So I have my speaking coach coming in to do a talk on stage presence. I have somebody coming in to talk about how to pitch your idea and get on stage. I have somebody coming in for personal branding, and then people who are also coming in for the health side of things. So how do you have better sleep? How do you use neuroscience to have a better calendar? And even NLP work. How do you reframe things on the subconscious level? So I'm really excited for that. We're starting January 4th, and I will be open if any of your listeners want to slide in late, like the second week or something. But I'm really excited because, again, 20 people have said yes. And everything that I've been able to do and be a part of has been that cadence and that energy of connection and community and bringing people together for higher purpose and intention. So the other elements of this group, it's not just the learning, it's the community, it's the connection. And what I love to do is I love to bring people together. You see me all the time. I'm always connecting people. I'm like, you need to meet this person, because that's where change happens. That's where collaborations happen. You just never know what one connection can bring to life. And that's the other exciting element, is the ability for people to truly come together and create movement in 2026.
That's so exciting. And I do hope that folks who listen will check this out. And even if it's, a little bit down the road, uh, you know, see if it's something that would work that they could slip in, or to, become aware of when the next opportunity arises. And I'm so grateful for our time together. I also want to give a shout out to the inimitable Scott McGregor and Kathy Love of the Outlier Project, without whom you and I would not know each other.
Right, right.
So, blessings to all the folks involved in that. And I, I think the world is moving in a better direction thanks to people like you, Candice. So please keep up that good work. Please stay in touch with me, because I'm someone on my own journey and can always use the nudge and support and the gentle virtual hugs to say, it's okay, dude.
You got it too, right? Well, you're doing
Right.
incredible work. And I love your energy and everything that you bring. You resonate this energy of connection and community as well. And it's really beautiful. And it's amazing to see how you bring this into the executive offices and you're able to really help people see mindfulness in a new way. So a little bit of pouring into you today.
Blessings. Well, wonderful holidays. Best of luck with the cohort. Um, Keep me posted on future retreats. And boy, the world is a better place with your involvement, Candice. So thank you.
Thank you.